Please help me in welcoming with a huge round of applause Dr. Florian Toncar, Parliamentary State Secretary, German Federal Ministry of Finance, to deliver his keynote. Let's have a huge round of applause for him, please. So, very warm welcome. Over to you.
Yes, so thank you so much for the kind introduction and reception. And really happy to be here because we have a global Fintech Fest here hosted in Mumbai, and I must say, just from the impressions I got so far, it is really a great experience to be here. It is impressive what you can show here in Mumbai in terms of progress, in terms of innovation, dynamic, enthusiasm, belief in a future which is also improved through technology, and also with the global outreach of this festival here. Of course, through international cooperation. So many thanks for giving me the opportunity to address you here as a guest from Europe, as someone who's curious to see how India is resolving all the issues around digitalization, and specifically how India managed to be so successful also in Fintech. Fintech is also important, of course, for Europe, and we have a quite vibrant Fintech community in Berlin as well. So I think it is quite obvious and natural that we should engage in a dialogue on how to develop good standards, good practices, to exchange views on how we can further build on technological innovation in the financial sector. And so it is one of the priorities, really top issues of the Ministry of Finance in Germany, to work on our fintech market domestically, but also, of course, in its interaction internationally. Then, because we see that, of course, the issues which are relevant for fintech companies, for their users, are quite the same everywhere around the globe. And so should be, of course, the answers, at least to be discussed jointly and to be found the best joint solutions. And to learn from each other, to benefit from the other one's knowledge. I think we are really in a step where we can say, both in Europe and in India, Fintech has already delivered tremendous benefits to our societies. It has made access to the financial markets, to payment or investment products easier, more affordable, and broader achievable for our societies, which the mere use and the growth of use of these products simply shows. Now it comes, of course, to next steps and developments around the application of artificial intelligence, about the further integration of fintech products to fintech solutions. And this is also, of course, something which is interesting for cross-border cooperation, but also, of course, in finding the right strategies to address challenges associated with the use of digital technologies around data protection, data use, as well as the combat of fraudulent and abusive practices on the market, which are even more relevant issue for global cooperation. So it is absolutely crucial that we discuss these issues jointly. When it comes to AI, I think it is obvious that there are plenty of perspective for future business models to be developed around AI, may it be the creditworthiness assessments, may it be automated customer services, customer complaints management, may it be risk management, may it be the appropriate assessment of risks of insurance companies, or regulatory tech, or the forensic use of AI in the context of financial markets. So we need AI. I think we can really see that it is very promising and can be disruptive and bring fintech on another stage. At the same time, we must, of course, also discuss how to soundly use it to avoid, for instance, that AI ultimately rather serves financial exclusion than inclusion, that it is at least transparent where it is used for. Europe has therefore attempted to regulate AI, or has regulated AI, and attempted to distinguish between several layers of AI technology, some which are uncritical, some who are standard, but also some critical areas of the use of AI, such, for instance, is the defense sector, the military sector, which is highly critical. And depending on the criticality of AI applications, there are varying regulatory standards which are applying. In the financial sector, in particular, the creditworthiness assessment has been deemed to be of a certain critical nature, as it could, of course, potentially also exclude people for intransparent reasons from certain services, and the assessment of risks in the health insurance. There, of course, AI may also have side effects which have to be discussed socially before they are applied. So we have really tried to distinguish between AI applications. It is still a regulation which promotes innovation, which is not prohibitive, but which tries to enhance the level of transparency required to an AI tool in accordance with its criticality. And that is what we are trying to implement. We will see how it develops, which impacts on the market it has, but we hope that it will really bring together the potential of AI with a sound protection against certain potential unintended side effects. We are also discussing concepts around open finance, so the issue whether we require the providers of banking services or insurance services to open their client data with the client's assent, of course, only, but to the provision of fintech companies, so to provide an interface into their client-related data with the assent of the client, but to allow for applications which really go deeper into the analysis of the client's situation and then offer better products to the client. So this is something which I think is an example where regulation supports innovation and supports competition on the market. So open finance, I think, is another priority we are currently seeing. The third issue I want to touch is digital central bank currencies. We see that India is ahead here, that India has already launched a solution and started to implement it. In Europe, there are still works ongoing to develop a sound concept. We will have a digital central bank currency, and if well done, it may also serve as a basis for private sector innovation and be open enough for the private sector to develop the fitting applications on it. Importantly, digital central bank currencies inter alia must, of course, be interoperable. So we need a close exchange between our central banks really to ensure that these digital central bank currencies are interacting well, that there are no disruptions, that settlement also across the currencies is easily achievable and not harmed. So that is, I think, something where we need close coordination of our efforts. And fourth, of course, we see that on the digital finance market, we also have abusive practices, problematic practices, people that try to commit fraud or engage in other practices at the expense of the investors, of the customers, in particular the unexperienced retail customers. And this is widespread. It is inherent to any new technology, of course, that some try to gain leverage, to gain their advantage by trying to abuse them, to use the lack of experience with it of some really to benefit from it. Therefore, of course, to promote fintech, we need joint approaches really to ensure that there is a minimum of customer confidence into these products. And that means that, of course, we need to educate our people really to what are the most popular tricks and widespread tricks, for instance, to get your money, but also to empower our authorities to go after it, which will only be possible if we give them the necessary technological, IT-related tools at hand. So we need to combat crime in the financial market, in the digital financial market, of course, with optimized digital solutions on the police and on the prosecutor side as well. But especially in this context, we see that many fraudulent models operate cross-border, which requires that our authorities also exchange their information maybe apply similar forensic tools to go after it, and that indeed we have a culture that as soon as that it's not happening that once the police in one country gets a request from abroad, they deprioritize it because they say that the crime has committed elsewhere, the victim is elsewhere, it's not our priority. Because this is used by criminals, of course, they rely on the deprioritization of the prosecution of financial crime which is committed abroad by the local authorities. So we need to do that jointly, to coordinate that. And this is, I think, also a contribution to enhance the confidence into fintech as a whole. Lastly, the special interest of Europe and of Germany as in particular, of course, is that we are interested in having open capital markets, that we allow for investment into dynamic, young growing companies across the regions. So we are very happy to see foreign investment into our startups, of course. They are needing funding. We have here in the room, we have Germany Trade and Investment, a specialized agency which is promoting investment in Germany, which is helping companies to enter the German market, which is helping investors to invest into German assets. So I think the active promotion, of course, of foreign investment is a key issue. Because I strongly believe and really firmly believe that we would mistake globally if we would now in our situation engage in further geopolitical or economic fragmentation. That is the overall context. We should not allow for this to happen. Every problem in the world is so complex and so challenging that it is only resolvable if we work together. And it would be a mistake to believe that autonomy, in a sense that we really shield from each other and protect from each other, are not allowing for someone else, another region, another country, to use their competitive advantages and their efficiencies and to contribute to the global welfare in that way. If we not allow for that to happen, I think we would make a big mistake. And we are really at a point where the world, I think, has to decide whether we want to enter into some form of deglobalization and more fragmentation, or whether we prefer cooperation to the mutual benefit in a fair environment on the global level. And there, I think digitalization and fintech can make its positive contribution to the latter approach, which I think is more sound and more helpful to mankind than any fragmentation and isolation. So thank you for doing your contribution to this sort of cooperation, this innovative contribution you make, and let's work on solutions which are integrating our economies and our societies rather than splitting them apart. Thank you for your, indeed, for your patience, and I'm really happy now to start engaging in the discussion.
Thank you so very much, sir, for those wonderful pointers and sharing your valuable insights with us. Thank you once again, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be now having the panel discussion. To moderate this session, I will now request and invite on stage Ms. Seema Bhardwaj, Director, India, GTAI, Germany Trade and Invest. Let's have a huge round of applause for her, please. Very, very warm welcome to you, ma'am. I would now like to invite our speakers, Mr. Dirk van Quaquebeke, Managing Partner, Beenext. Let's have a huge round of applause, please. Very, very warm welcome, sir. I would now like to invite Mr. Rajesh Bansal, Chief Executive Officer, Reserve Bank Innovation Hub. So welcome. Once again, a hearty warm welcome to everyone. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you very much for the warm introductions. A very warm welcome from my side as well. So once again, a short introduction about me. My name is Seema Bhardwaj, and I am Director India for Germany Trade and Invest. Dr. Toncar already mentioned what GTAI does. So we have two business lines. One is about trade, wherein we help German companies to internationalize by providing business intelligence reports. Second is Invest, which I take care of. I'm based in Mumbai, and we help Indian companies for soft lending within Germany, including fintechs, startups, and of course the big traditional companies as well. So, Dr. Toncar, we had an interesting impulse from your side? Before, I would just like to give short numbers when we start. This event is, first we consider the numbers. So, the global fintech revenues are expected to hit on 1.5 trillion by 2030. This is a massive jump from 445 billion in 2021. So while North America has traditionally led the way, Europe is now poised to outpace both North America and Asia Pacific in fintech growth over the next few years. Germany, as Europe's largest economy, is a major player with over 1,000 fintech companies, 10 of which are unicorns, and fintech adoption rate of almost 75%. As we heard in Dr. Toncar's speech, the German government is actively supporting the sector with various initiatives. On the other hand, India is quickly emerging as a global fintech hub with more than 4,000 fintech startups. Indian fintechs are not just innovating with UPI, they're also tapping into niche technologies like AI and blockchain. Emerging solutions such as AI-driven customer validation and KYC are ushering in a new era for the fintech industry, with strong government support for a digital and cashless economy. India's fintech landscape is growing rapidly, bringing new opportunities and challenges. It holds true for both the geographies. Further, venture capital is key to fueling this growth, enabling fintech innovations and collaborations in both Germany and India. To explore these opportunities further, we are joined by these three panelists who bring valuable insights from the worlds of government, regulation, and investment. Dr. Florian Toncar, Minister of State, Federal Ministry of Finance, Germany. Once again, a short introduction. I would say, like initial, when we started with the question was, right, and the one was that your message was strong and clear. I had to note it. The German government wants to be strong fintech and startup location in Europe. So, from how does Germany's regulatory environment support, first of all, innovation in the fintech sector? And perhaps I would also like to know, in the growing and evolving landscape which we have nowadays, what is the role of traditional financial institutions in the fintech ecosystem in Germany? How do you see that?
First of all, we have developed a political strategy, the roadmap for the German digital financial market, the fintech roadmap specifically. And we have drafted that not in government offices, but we have really asked the fintech sector to develop it on its own and really to draft it, and it has been an amazing, really amazing outcome. So we have a roadmap for the digital financial market, and we are now in the process of implementing this roadmap. But really, the close advice of the fintech industry is so crucial because it's, as you know, it's so quick, it's so rapid, it's so dynamic that governments need special and quick advice, and we have ensured we get that. We get instant advice from practitioners from the fintech community in Germany on almost every political issue which arises. And that helps us, of course, also to promote the fintech on European level, where many decisions are made for the whole European market. So Germany is also very active on European level when it comes to fintech, and we are really able to act quickly if possible. When it comes to regulation, we have facilitated quite a lot for fintechs. For instance, we have recently introduced purely tokenized shares, which can be issued, which are fully recognized. As only one example where we have made progress, where we are far ahead also of most European countries. That's, I think, what we have to go further, to be first mover, to show confidence into this market segment. And I'm really happy that we have this development in Germany.
Thank you very much. So I'll move on, as Dr. Toncar mentioned about the innovation which is fast-paced and moving. Mr. Bansal, you have been working, being a regulator on RBI on a side, and now working for a regulator now. So being an innovator, how do you see? First, I would like you just give a short introduction what your RBI Innovation Hub just so that the audience gets to know a bit about what your activities are. And then perhaps I'll also ask you how your hub is helping in the innovation in this field. Yeah?
Thank you so much, Seema, and thank you for having me on this session. So, I am an ex-regulator, so just to be clear, I'm not going to talk about regulation as I told Seema, but as most of the people in the audience by this time, we are 3-year-old baby of and as some of my people call it, the fun cousin of the Reserve Bank of India. So that's a new term I learned. So basically, Reserve Bank of India is one of the rarest central banks we realize, which has set up an independent company focusing on innovation and acceleration of fintech ecosystem. So it was really heartening to hear the minister on how Germany is driving it, at a top speed. Honestly, I knew some, but I'm learning more, including having the fintechs tell them what is the best way to do. So as our role, I'll stick to that, is our mission is frictionless finance for 1 billion Indians. And for that, we do multiple pathways. We built, ULI, Unified Lending Interface, India's new credit DPI, which the governor announced for yesterday. It's a talk of the media. So that is something we have built. We have built something to do with frauds, as the minister was talking about frauds on the liability side. We have built frauds on the lending side as well. We are kind of building these tools to prove to the legacy, if I can call it, or traditional banking system, that new age emerging technologies offer enough opportunities and we allow them to test it. We also have a design element where we work with the banking system and fintechs. And the last one I want to focus on is what we call as a FAST. We have a separate vertical which focuses on fintech and startup acceleration. So I have a strong team of 10 plus people. We have a tie-up with 10 large academic institutions. And we work on a 5M framework. But I'll not go into details of that. We have analyzed it takes 12 to 18 months for a fintech to tie up with the first bank. We are solving for it. They don't know, sometimes they fail because they don't have the right product fit. We work on that. We work with the VCs and Beenext, and apologies, I already apologized to Dirk. My bad. My team knew about it, so I didn't. That work with them to get them in the room to look at, what is the best startup in some ways. And we also have a great mentor pool, which kind of ensures that the success rate, it's early days. Now, the one parameter I want to tell you, we have reduced the 12 to 18 months by 1/6, and a number of banks have tied up, a number of fintechs and banks have tied up. So I'll stop here, Seema.
Thank you very much. So since you already gave a point about venture capital, we have Mr. Dirk from Quaquebeke. He is the CEO of Beenext and Managing Director. So along with the government, as we heard, and the venture capital helps startup grow and scale successfully. So what is your view as such of the global fintech sector? How do you see that? And second, since you have been working in both the geographies, not in just both, I would say in many geographies. So, and especially when we talk here, and you're mostly focused on Asia Pacific, which is now set to become a fintech market in terms of revenue. It's growing very fast. So, and as I initially mentioned, Europe is quickly catching up. So, and they worked in both the geographies. How do you see venture capital supporting and capitalizing on this growth? So there are two questions to it. Thank you.
Well, thank you. That's a pretty big and loaded question. Thank you for having us here on the panel as well. Quick introduction for those of you who don't know Beenext myself. It's a venture capital firm. We started in 2015. We focus on early stage investing. A lot of that happens in India as well. So we have by now 300 plus companies that we invested in across Japan, Southeast Asia, and India. In India, the count is around 120 companies. When we started the firm, it was a crazy German, so I'm half German, and two crazy Japanese partners. And they built an inspiration for me to build a stronger corridor where I'm from, even though I deserve an OCI, Overseas Citizen of India status. but I'm from Germany, so I'd like to build more bridges. With that context, let me answer the question. So, number one, how do I see fintech? I think India in particular is one of the most vibrant ecosystem, and we have significantly invested here in the fintech companies. Some of them are M2P, Jupiter. You know, we had a chance, unfortunately, Kunal Shah. We had a chance to invest. Unfortunately, we didn't. So Cred and these companies, they're all good old friends. It's also one of the markets where the private sector actually has to think about competing with the regulator, i.e., they're doing such a good job that I think Amrish Rao tweeted something along the lines of, you know, there's a congregation of 75,000 fintech professionals here. They all talk about building big companies, and then they wake up and realize that MPCI and RBI have built the majority of these products already.
I would take that as a compliment.
And that is a huge compliment, right? So I think that's one. I think the other macro trend, if I look at the history, and I'll try to keep it very short, I think we're, to an extent, abuse is the wrong word, but we're using the India stack for what it was not designed to do. It was a financial inclusion instrument that started with a biometric layer, and then more layers were designed on top. The problem is the design choices on the technology side were made with something entirely different in mind. So I think there needs to be a fundamental reset on how we think about building blocks of technology to preserve some of the earlier addressed sort of fundamental abstract needs of a financial ecosystem that can drive global change and interoperability, immutability, privacy, all these kind of things. And I'm very happy to hear that some of this is happening. I'll pause there. If you want me to continue, of course I can.
Thank you very much. So I hear 2-3 points. One is innovation, regulation coming in, and you are, as a venture capitalist, have mentioned as of now that it's difficult to catch up. So what do you think, just in your view as of now, or all of three? So what do you think, innovation should happen, keeping in regulations, or first the innovation and the regulation comes? So please, any one of you can start.
Well, this is exactly the trade-off which we have permanently to make, and there are more, I would say, more risk-taking societies which prefer innovation over security and the assurance that no bad things are happening, and others who are more security related and rather prefer security over innovation. I tend to be more innovation oriented, or if you may call so, also certain risk oriented. But there can be, of course, a tipping point. Lack of regulation, non-existent regulation may even make more markets smaller, because consumers may abstain from engaging in the market at all if they have no confidence. So sound regulation is product neutral. It is not for the government or the authorities to decide which business model is superior to others. It must be open to change, so regulators may not discriminate business models they have not yet seen anyone before, which is a challenge, because many, as human beings we are a bit biased. Something we have experience with is probably sometimes treated more favorably than something we have never seen before, and we can't fully judge. So to overcome a certain bias of regulators against innovation simply as a consequence of lack of experience is really a challenge, but is necessary. And good regulations assures that customers may rely that they are not frauded, that indeed their funds are not lost. Things like FTX in the United States have been harmful for the crypto market. A good regulation would ensure that indeed someone to offer such services has to ensure that client money, client assets, and the company's assets are strictly separate, and that client funds are insolvency protected. And that, I think, is an example of necessary and very positive regulation, which may even stimulate the market and drives innovation.
Thank you. Would you like to add? Since you are adding innovation.
The minister said, a lot of dependency is on the market structure. because what might work in Germany might not work in India, and what might work in India, the context really matters. So as the minister said, and Seema, I'll be honest, I mean, yeah, as the minister said, it's not easy for the governments and the central banks to be as smart as, as the people sitting here. It's obviously so that is one thing. But regulation, I'll give you an example in India of P2P lending. So a few years back, there was no regulation. Then when the regulation came in, there was market certainty, more investment. I'm sure Beenext would have invested. So regulation is definitely an enabler, and to the startups and fintech, it gives more clarity on the way forward. Sometimes it might not, at the first go, the fintechs or the startup might not like it, but it gives more certainty because investors now know where is the future path. Yeah, I'll stop here.
All right, okay. You would like to add something as a VC? How do you see it affects your decision making when investing?
I mean, we invest so early that we do take regulatory risk, which is very uncommon. And we have gotten bitten in crypto in India at least once, as an example. And that's okay, that's part of the journey. But I think at a system level, it comes back to what I said earlier about design choices of technology. So regulation and design choices of technology, I think it's a good thing if they go hand in hand together on DPI, Digital Public Good Infrastructure. Why? Because if you do these design choices right, then and a lot has with decentralization and self-autonomy to do, because then you reduce the risk of massive failures, right? So ultimately, if those design choices are sound, I think the regulator has a lot more time to react to trends in the market rather than, like real centralized risk at scale.
Okay, so thank you for your points on this. Our topic today is building bridges between two countries, various geographies, as we see this evolving landscape, and with the introduction of AI, this is happening much too fast, and I think also the regulations which we are having, they are all, we have to follow. What you can say in Germany, hinterher, you're just running after that. So I would like to say, to stay in the context of our topic, Dr. Toncar, what are the initiatives and support systems offered by the German government? And of course, since we are having Indian audience, international audience here, are there any special initiatives or support which is provided by the German government to the international companies who would like to set up in Germany?
Yeah, I mean, of course, we have, for instance, a Germany Trade and Invest, a specialized agency to consult what is to be observed on the German market, where do you have to go if you want to establish a corporation, incorporated company, how about the tax authorities, with whom do you have to speak, in which order, etc., and really can do it tailored on where you are coming from. So I think we have the specialists there to advise foreign investment into Germany, entering the German market. We are basically an open economy which is oriented to competition and considers it as a positive thing if there is competition. And so we help investing in Germany and entering the market. Of course, on the market, you have to compete, you have to provide something superior to be successful, but at least we want to make it easier to access it and to have your chance there. And except that, I think we try really to support the market in a neutral way, not helping someone indirectly or discriminating. So we provide, for instance, co-funding of public institutions, a state-owned bank called KfW, which co-invests into venture funds. So we do that, but we do that ideally in a neutral way. For instance, we invest to leverage existing venture funds, not to directly invest into individual companies, so that we have a bigger market to invest into venture without the government to decide which company or which business model is superior to others.
Okay, thank you. So we already have these systems set up, and I think they're not very known much time, so this is a good opportunity to know. There are initiatives happening. By the way, we also have KFW office here, which is supporting actively in Delhi. And so with this, I go to you, Mr. Bansal. When we talk of globalization, so what are the unique contributions which your hub, I would say, is making in the fintech ecosystem? And particularly when we see which can be harmonized, or giving framework which can be harmonized across various geographies. So do you have something like this, and they can one-to-one put, as we said, innovation and regulation? So are you keeping the international aspect as focus? And if any innovation happens, can this be replicated, let's say, to a different geography, like, say, a jurisdiction in Germany?
So, one of the things is that there is always a learning which happens, and especially the European India market. I'll just say one thing and take it forward, because most of us in India as fintechs think of 1 billion consumers, that's good enough market, and Europe is 350 million consumers? 450.
Yes.
450 million consumers. But that's not the only thing. The income levels of the European market is far ahead. So potentially the revenues. So one of the things, when I was invited for this panel, we have been doing round tables on Koramangala, that's in Bangalore, Koramangala to California. So I think we'll have to gradually change it to Mumbai to Berlin.
Yes.
And that's what works. But see, some of the things where European markets and Germany has really matured, especially in terms of artificial intelligence, and as the minister in his address mentioned, the biases that we see, how do we ensure there are reduced biases, especially, let's say, on a lending side. In the Indian market, it's very easy for us to use AI, and then, as I give an example, a 25-year-old man in my company and a 25-year-old girl in my company earning the same thing with the same background, there is a good chance that the girl will get rejected because of the inherent biases. Honestly, I requested my team, let's do some intelligence and apply. So this is something that the European market is really matured. So that's something, and as at the G20 we are talking about it, Prime Minister spoke about it, the fact that global, as I repeat, the one world. In artificial intelligence, it can't be, no borders, right? And as we develop new models, one of the things on AI again is that the fact, somebody told me an interesting thing, and I kind of tend to agree. We in Indians, from the time we are born, are wired to handle complexity. So somebody said, and I tend to agree, so in development of AI models suited to specific market needs, we could definitely play a role, and work with the global community.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think if you have worked in India with the huge amount of heterogeneity it's existing here, Europe is, I think, very homogeneous. Just if you consider the language, you can at least read it. Yeah, so which is not be possible in a country like India. So thank you so much for your inputs there. So Mr. Quaquebeke, collaboration between our two systems, when we talk of, let's say, diverse countries like Germany and India, this normally leads to scaling and investments. So the VC firms such as yours, they come into play in such scenarios. So my question to you would be, what funding models or investment strategies work best for fintech companies looking to expand into various geographies? And here, to be specific, since you have a German background and in the Indian market.
Can I ask how many founders are here in the room? Just raise your hand. Okay. So I think there's a huge, let me rephrase it. So we all know there's sort of this movement of fintech and SaaS from India to the world. But to the world really means in 99% of the cases to the US. Why? Because it's easy. Right? It's easy. Why? Because they're very strong alma maters, and it's a multicultural, very diverse place that's open for business. It's English speaking. Europe is more complex. right? But that's also the opportunity. So there's a big gap. And I also asked myself when I invest in India, I mean, like 10 years ago when we started, I think capital was good enough, right? And just helping the ecosystem. And we're all, like most of us were former founders, so there's a lot of value we add on a boardroom level. But now also, like, how can we help our founders more? And I think market access is one of those. And if this market access is aligned with capital, then it becomes very interesting. So helping our companies that we invest in cross these borders more systematically is certainly something we're working on. We have been doing that quite successfully with Japan, which is similarly, I sometimes joke even with my partners at the firm who are from Japan, that it's almost confusing when you come to the country and want to do business because it's culturally so different. And I think the need in a homogeneous country on the receiving end, there's more help needed to really understand the place, build a community around it, and basically combine capital and then other resources that help on go-to-market, IP transfer, collaborations, etc. So in the end, it starts really with intercultural exchange, capital, and people.
Okay, thank you. So this is what it's a one, let's say, we are already doing it already. One of the things which Minister also earlier in his talk said that a lot of interactive talking with each other, deciding what is happening, and the networking events like this are very useful, for all these intercultural activities which you have mentioned. So we are running out of time, so just a quick to all three of us, starting from Minister, your last quick statement or comment for this panel, which you would like, or a short takeaway which you'd like to give to the audience here.
Yes, I think the biggest challenges in Europe now is really to have an agile, proportionate regulator with a good regulation which is targeted and avoids red tape. And secondly, capital in capital markets, more investment into equity and own funds. This is where we have to work on. But we offer, I think, fascinating business opportunities. And certainly what works here, why shouldn't it work in Europe? So just try. And I do hope that we really have mutual stimulation, innovation, participating and benefiting from our experience mutually. That's what I wish.
Thank you. And for my other two, I would like to comment. So please.
So if you ask me to look at stargazing, what would I wish? I would say by 2030, fintechs without borders.
That's wonderful. And what would you say that's from the practical aspect?
It's very hard to top, but I think I truly believe give young people the chance to experience intercultural full immersion, and that goes on all levels. That can be professional, that can be regulatory exchanges between the government, where through immersion you actually understand the other ecosystem. Maybe you fall in love, maybe you start calling it your home, and I think that's how true bridges ultimately are being built. So I hope to see more intercultural exchanges between Europe and India and continental Europe, right? So Europe is very welcoming. Please come and let's build bridges.
Well, thank you so much. That is a good word to end this talk. So let's keep the momentum going and turn today's insights from our panelists into meaningful action. With this, I would recommend to please interact with us and contact us. So our three panelists are here. And with this, I would like to thank you for your attention and happy networking. Thank you so much.